All right, sorry about the late start, everybody. Welcome to the Composition Musicale. I'm Evan Meyer. I'm the chair of the Theory and Composition Department here at Levine. So you are going to hear a wide variety of pieces from very young students who have not taken composition lessons and for whom this is their first composition. And you'll also hear on the second half of our program from our adult students as well. So first on the program, we have a short piece for violin and piano by Nicholas Sabran. Nicholas studies piano with Artur Aksonoff and music theory with me.
Number two only. Starting here.
Oh.
All right, so the way this is going to work, Nicholas, would you mind coming up to the front? And Avner, one of our composition teachers who also played the piece, so wonderfully, will be giving feedback.
Okay. I have a question. Are we giving feedback for the whole piece or for just the section that we played?
For the section that you played.
Okay, I
Yeah.
see. Could we please play, Sam, can we please play maybe the first two bars?
Yeah.
You play your right hand and I'll play my melody. Just the right hand. Okay, I have a question. What do you think about the two melodies together? Could you hear them kind of as two different melodies or maybe as kind of one thing? What do you think?
Maybe more as one thing.
One thing, okay. Because the two melodies are actually in the same range. You're playing exactly some of the same notes. And when you have something like that, it's a little bit hard to tell apart the two melodies. And I'm going to do something different. I'm going to play my melody an octave above. So let's see if we can hear a difference now when I play it a little higher. Ready? Maybe a little slower, it's a little harder for me. 3, 4. What do you think about the violin voice?
It's a little better to tell apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
melodies.
Yeah, I think that can help you if you just are a little bit more aware of when the two voices are in the same range. So ranges are really important when we come to things like orchestrating. If you look in the orchestra, right, you have the violins and the violas and the cello, they all have different ranges. So I think it's really, that could really help if we separate some of the ranges.
Can we try let's do the first two measures. I'm going to try different piano part. Can we do it again?
Yeah.
Or whichever.
Do you want to play the same two measures?
Yeah.
Okay, ready, and...
Let's do it again. Trying to give you some ideas for a little more action and a little more rhythmic left hand, different things you can do either to emphasize the rhythm or if you like the smoothness and kind of the legato nature to break the chord up. So,
Yeah, that's something that's a really good idea. What is your instrument?
Violin, piano, and guitar.
Oh, okay. That's very good. So you can, why don't you look at some composition, like, there's Mozart has violin piano sonatas. I think they have the E minor one, or E major, it might be a good one. Just look at some of his piano and violin sonatas and look at the basso ostinato. So you know what the ostinato means?
Yeah.
So that means that you take the left hand and you break it up to different patterns, just like Sam did. And see if that can help. Actually, why don't we try both things? We'll try to play the violin an octave higher and with the ostinato like you played it, Sam. We'll try to play the first 4 measures.
Sure.
And you have such beautiful melody in the speech. It really helps it come out when you have this kind of ostinato and also thinking about the registers. Yeah, great job.
Thank you.
Next on the program, we have J.L. Dulce playing 2 pieces, The Announcement and Song of the Orphan. J.L. studies piano with Jamila Takali-Hanner and Musicale with me.
I'm going to ask you to play a couple things. So I really love, especially like the clarity of the themes and the sense of rhythm. Really beautiful. So I just have a couple of ideas that I think could make it even better. So, and it's kind of working off what we just did actually in the last piece. So can you play the beginning of the first one again? Good. Now, can you actually, so let me play one thing and see if you can imitate. Did you hear the change I made? Very small change, right? But that was actually a little different too. So I'm actually not repeating as many the left-hand chords, just for a little sense of, I think it could give it like a little more interesting rhythmic sense. Can you try it?
Okay.
Sorry to put you on the spot here. That's okay. It's okay if you can't do it. You can try it later. You can experiment with the different rhythms. Now, the one other thing I want to say about the first piece, can you try playing the theme an octave higher? Because it comes back, how many times? It comes back 2 more times after.
Yes.
There's a little B section, and it comes back, and then it comes back 1 more time at the end. See how it sounds an octave higher. Good. Now, how would it sound with the left hand in the original and the right hand an octave higher? Okay, now one more idea. Can you bring the left hand 1 octave lower even? Yeah. So maybe for one of the repeated sections, you can experiment with, because one of the great advantages of the piano is this really wide range, bigger than lots of the other instruments, even the violin and things like that. And then for the second piece, which was very beautiful, and I really, by the way, heard this kind of the storyline that you put in the program notes, really beautiful. My suggestion is, well, first of all, I think you can experiment with the range the same way with the melody, but then the other thing is, can you try the beginning with a little bit of pedal to kind of emphasize the smoothness? And the question is, are you familiar with using the pedal and how to change it from, yeah? Try it. Because I know it'll take some practice with the pedal, because you want to, right? So. I don't know if I'm playing it. And then you try an octave higher. Add some ornaments to it. Just to give you some ideas for how to kind of spice it up a little bit. It's really beautiful, and I loved it. Excellent job.
Next we have Linnea Wang, who will be playing a 2-voice composition composed for her theory class with Natalie Ormsby.
actually leave the music up there for a second. You can stay at the piano. So just asking the audience, if you had to guess what time signature is this in, what would you say? So it's in 7/4, right? And I like that. I think that's yeah. So we have a 7 feel. So I like the 7/4. I think that the rhythmic composition. I think that was clearly the emphasis, right? Was to emphasize the 7. So I think even just having more of a 7 feel could really help. So maybe just play even just play one hand. If you feel more comfortable with one of these hands, maybe try to play just the first measure and then go into the second measure, but really try to emphasize that 7. So like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, right? So really sort of lead that line all the way down, just so we can sort of feel that time. So just play one hand, but right. So okay. So yeah. So try playing the left hand actually. Do the left hand and try to really lead this line all the way, and then push through to the 7, and then emphasize this downbeat a little bit, so we can really feel where that 7. Just because 7 is such a cool time, right, that we don't hear a lot of things in 7. So I think really trying to emphasize the 7 and emphasizing those downbeats could help the listener really hear that 7 feel. Something else you might want to experiment with, just maybe some articulations, maybe even same thing if you want to play those first couple measures. Why don't you play just the left hand, but try to staccato these 8th notes, okay? So just play this first measure as is, but maybe make the 8th note staccato. Experimenting with some articulations could really help bring out some of those lines. Also, something I would think about, in this third measure up here, you go up to that high D, and so I like that you're using the full register of the piano, but something like that, I think you could even save that higher register for later in the piece. The goal of this is clearly to establish these rhythmic ideas, but just thinking of sort of this high point, I think you could lead us there, maybe a little later in the piece. But I like the idea that you're using the full register of the piano. And something else I was thinking about, you use this motive a lot, right? With these seconds, you sort of do it here, and then even at the very end. Let's find another spot. Let's see, maybe in here, like where you do this. So whenever you have these seconds, right, you tend to use the seconds whenever you have the 8th notes, and you do it, or the 16th notes. So I was thinking if you were going to expand this, maybe you could change some of those intervals, so you open it up a little bit. So play just this right hand if you want to. You can play it slow, the tempo doesn't matter. So I think something like that, you have these, every time you do that 16th note motive, you're using the seconds. So I think if you could maybe integrate some thirds or fourths and start to open it up a little bit, it could be nice. So even taking this, and sort of mix up the intervals, I think that might give you a little bit more motivic material to work with. And that's something, you could add into the piece at the end. And I think even at the end, I like how you're doing these seconds here, and the same thing. I think if you work in some other intervals within those seconds, maybe thirds, fourths, and open up that, it's sort of like a notated trill, right? I think that could give you some more continuity within that motive. But overall, really nice job. I know, writing music is hard, and I think you did a wonderful job for your first piece. So, yeah, congratulations.
We have another composition for Ms. Ormsby's theory class by Wenkai Sanfort. Come up to the front.
first composition? Wow. Give my hands. Amazing. So when comes taking theory 4, so this is, I'm guessing you learn suspensions in theory 4. And we're using that in the piece, and has a wonderful melody, which then is, so this is the melody. Okay. Can you explain to me, so how did this piece come about? Did you start by writing the exercise and then you added the theme?
Well, I was doing it for like a composition project, and then I like into it a little bit.
I see, okay. So what I see now is you have this theme. Okay, and then you have probably a theory project, and then we have the theme again. Okay, so you had the theme for 2 bars, and then you have the theme for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars. So what we call that, it's called a melodic expansion. So he's taking a theme or a melody that has 2 bars, and he's adding some more material to it, which is based on the same rhythm. Okay, and that's why what gives like the piece this kind of feeling of unity is the use of this theme. Okay, and in between he's using these scales with suspensions to get to the next theme. Okay, is that the way you thought it? You thought that maybe I'm telling you something new about your piece. Well, great. Okay, it's good to know. Okay, and then you have a coda that's based on your theme. Okay, and that's what we call coda as well. So it's very well structured because it has this it has a theme and it's expanded, and then you have a coda using the theme. So I'm going to tell you about something that you can use to make this expansion here in the middle even better, I think. There's something that's called an overall melody or melodic structure. Now, what does it mean? Sometimes in the big pieces we have something that sounds like a melody but also has a hidden melody. So in this case, if you take the first note of each bar, you get G, G, C, C, E. Okay? So something you can do is use that melody to even expand it more. So do you mind if I just demonstrate a way of doing that? So same G. You can use the A. Okay, so I've just used a few notes of the scale, and that's a really nice way of expanding your melody even more if you want to. So, you know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about these parts, and these are the downbeats that can make up this melody. Very good, and you can bring them also out when you're playing. It kind of gives the listener a little bit of an idea of what that structure is. Okay, so I don't think this is a theory assignment, because sometimes you have those seconds. It's kind of nice if you have this. But just to know, when we come to music theory, that's not to be confused with composition. You're not supposed to have a second that basically is repeated, but that's fine. I like that because I write contemporary music, so the kind of things that I like seeing. Okay, yeah. Do you have any more questions? Okay, nice job.
we have a surprise on our program. Jerome Ammon is going to be playing a cello piece that he wrote. Does your piece have a title, Jerome?
I just called it Levine Compositions.
Okay, Levine composition.
Wonderful. So, how much experience do you have writing music? Is this your first piece?
My first piece of was actually played for an audience.
Okay, cool. So is this your first time having an audience for your piece?
Yeah.
Cool. Or how do you feel with how do you feel about it? Everything went well?
I mean, could make it a bit longer.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so that would be my first comment, right? So I think it's nice. I think what you have here is really nice. I think you could easily make it a bit longer. Even if you could even repeat it and do some alterations to it. A lot of it almost reminds me of like an early Baroque dance, like a short little like binary form, like a two-part form. Usually there's some repeats. So I think that's something you could experiment with. Because even if you wrote, more of these or even repeating this, what you have and sort of changing it around a little bit. Some other things I think you could think about. I like at the very end, you really held that note, right? You really dug into it and you held it. So in the beginning, I like what you're doing and you have these staccatos and you're sort of moving through the line, but I think you could actually hold on to some of those notes a little more too to let it sing. So what about play just the very, that first phrase and maybe just hold on to even the very first note that you start with and maybe and even maybe this trill hold for a second longer just so we can sort of, so I think just hold on to some of those notes a little more. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just holding it a little more and taking your time with it, I think would be nice. And then also just even dynamically, right? I think you're playing it well, but whenever you try to play it, say forte, and maybe just follow this line down. Like if you sort of just follow the line, like with Paris dynamics, sort of go diminuendo and then crescendo through this line to the end of, maybe measure 5 when you try something like that. Nice, yeah. Okay, so yeah, exactly. So something like that. I think just working in some dynamics could be nice. And then at the end, I like how you have this trill thing going on, right? So you have the trill here, you have the trill at the very end, and I think that's something you could maybe work in. If you took a repeat, maybe you might add some more little trills or some grace notes to some notes. Do you feel comfortable experimenting with that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So why don't you play? I mean, it's short enough. Why don't you play the whole piece, and then why don't you repeat it and try to add a few trills or grace notes? Just experiment with it. I want to see what happens.
Add grace notes or trills and random notes.
Sure. Even maybe the start of this phrase, certain notes that you don't have a staccato, you can maybe add a trill or even just little ornaments. It's hard to do it on the spot, right? You have everybody watching you, but I think that's something you could experiment with. It really just a simple repeat, maybe adding some grace notes, just some ornaments, experimenting with dynamics, and I think you can get a lot more out of that material. I think what you have is great, and just expanding it in a repeat, adding some of those articulations, dynamics, additional notes. I think that's all you might need. And I could see this, write a few of these. You could have a few little binaries, like a little Baroque dance suite. Right? So yeah, all right, congrats and nice playing.
All right, so our next piece is entitled Candy and Soap Bubbles by Henry Bodenstein. Henry studies with Kenny Stillwell, who unfortunately couldn't be here today.
Great playing, Sam, as always. I love the title, right? Candy and Soap Bubbles. That's classic. I like your use of the register. I think it's nice. You really use the upper register and you save that low register for the end, which is really beautiful. And I think your use of seventh chords are really nice. You have this very sort of lush, open sound.
Piece actually started as a project. My composition teacher gave me sort of like a mini assignment with
What was
seven
the?
chords.
Oh, so it was a seventh chord assignment. Because I
Yeah.
saw in your program notes this started as a minor assignment.
Yeah.
So that was the assignment was the seventh
Yeah.
chords.
So, and then I kind of expanded on it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really beautiful. It works really well. And so what you're doing in the beginning, you have all these sort of, root position seventh chords in the left hand. I think it sounds really nice. When you do something like that, you have all this parallel motion, which is fine. It's more of a planing idea, sort of like a Debussyan, sort of approach to it, which is nice, rather than a strict like voice leading where you're avoiding those. So I was thinking. Something with the seventh chords, I think it's nice, but I noticed that in your piece you almost use exclusively root position seventh chords, except for when you have these ninth chords, down in here, right? Like measure 11, measure 14, or 11 and 12, really, and 13, and then you go back to root position. So I was wondering, was there any reason why you stuck to the root position? You like the sound of it? Is that just?
I guess I just like the sound of it.
Okay, cool. So that's something I wanted to, I'm sure, are you comfortable experimenting with the sound? Sure. So I think maybe leave the root position seventh chords in the opening. I think that's really nice. But then maybe after these ninth chords at 11 and 12, 13, when you come back to 14, do you want to experiment, Sam, with maybe inverting some of those chords just so you're, if possible, just to, give it a different sound? So maybe actually go from the beginning if you want so we can hear the difference. So that's the idea, right? So you don't have that. So really you're doing a repeat, but instead of doing the exact repeat, you can just invert the chords and get a slightly different sound, slightly different voice leading.
Yeah.
So I think that's something you could experiment with. It's just I noticed the ninth chords were inverted and the sevenths were all root positions. So I think literally just sort of experimenting with voicings and moving around the position of the chords, I think that will actually do a lot for the piece. Something else I noticed in the very beginning. So you have dynamics, which I like, but they are sort of contradictory in that you have a mezzo forte, diminuendo into a forte, which then crescendos to a mezzo forte. I think Sam did a really nice job following it, but I think that's a little tricky, right?
The accidents were a little bit last minute.
The dynamics.
Yeah.
Everyone likes to do their dynamics at the end. You guys wait. You all wait until the end and you throw the dynamics in. It's like the seasoning in the food or something. Right?
Yeah.
So I think with the dynamics, I think I like that you have the dynamics, but because they sort of contradict each other, maybe something like I like starting with the mezzo forte and coming down, but maybe measure 4, Sam, if you want to drop to like a pianissimo, and really crescendo through that. Yeah. So can you play just the maybe the first 5 measures? So you have a lot of these crescendos going to fortes and things. So I think taking advantage of the lower dynamics, just the softer sound, I think it gives you a little more room to expand later on, especially with this sort of impressionistic sound that you set up in the beginning. And the last thing I wanted to mention, I like that you save the lower register, but in a piece this short, you really go to that bass clef and measure 33, and then you really only have 4 measures of that bass clef. So I was just thinking maybe you could experiment with bringing that left hand down a little earlier, maybe measure 29. Like in here, I like this line, and I like how you're bringing us down there. But if you brought that down like an octave, starting at 29, I think you could get a little more out of that low register before we get to this, here, which is nice. But I think just, you use the upper register, so why not get down there a little earlier? Sam, can you maybe play 29 to 32, to down me to 32 as is, and then play it again and take that left hand down an octave? Sorry. Something like that, just to sort of creep us down into that register, almost to foreshadow those really low notes that come later.
Yeah.
But yeah, wonderful piece though. I really like the sound world you created, and yeah, keep going. Beautiful work, and thank you.
Next on the program, we have a sonatina in C major by Christopher Stubbs, who studies composition with me. You can come up at the end, yeah.
So yeah, I think overall very fluid. I think it's a wonderful piece. The form is very clear. I think you lead the listener into each section really nicely. So I was reading your program notes. You already look up to the music is your world. You look up to the classical giants. So who are some of your favorite classical composers? say. It sounds very Mozart-esque in a good way, though. It's nice. So yeah, a lot of really good things going on. There's a lot here, and I also want to leave some time for Sam to say a few comments as well. So a couple things I noticed. On the first page, something I would think about. So you come up to this G5 a lot, like almost every time, right? Measure 8, you go to the C, but for the most part, you keep going to that same G in the beginning. So, like, I just noticed a lot of them are on that G. So I would just be careful with in terms of when you're going up and down. If you're going to go to a high point, like make sure you're changing it, right? Go up, go down, to sort of save it, I think, because you do hit that G a lot. I think in the first couple pages, it's almost every single time you go up, you land on that same note and come down. So I think just being aware of that, to go to maybe different notes sometimes, to stretch your line, I think could be helpful. Also, let me jump around a bit. Also very generally, I think you could work in some more dynamics. I think you've thought out like the material, very clearly, and I think you could probably exaggerate those dynamics a bit too. Like first page is forte, fortissimo, and then we go to a piano at 18. But I think even within these, you could really sort of stretch these lines. Sam, can you go to 18 really quick? And can you? I think you were even playing it maybe a bit more musical, but could you start that really soft and maybe just crescendo for a couple measures, come down, just exaggerate that. So I think just within that piano, think about how you can stretch that line and just make it musical, because it is soft, but within the softness, you also have relative dynamics within the piano. Another section that I really liked, jumping to 59. Can you go to 59, Sam? So this adagio I thought was really nice. It really breaks up that texture, because for the most part you're moving, it's pretty quick. So 59 I thought was beautiful. I think it comes at just the right moment. I was thinking you could even maybe do it again, just to stretch that middle moment out a little bit, right? Can you play it twice, Sam? And on the repeat, can you take the right hand up an octave? So even what Sam's doing right there, just sort of expanding that section. It's such a nice moment that you arrive at, and I think you could just bring that out a little more, stretch it out, just because it's so different than all the other material. And then the last thing I'm going to say before I hand it over to Sam, I think at 63 right after it, I like that you have you go right back into the odd tempo, but I think because you sort of have this massive build to that fortissimo, even starting that slower, like maybe at the adagio tempo and the cello rondo through here and pushing, you could just give it a little more intensity, like pushing through to 68. Can you maybe, sorry, Sam. Oh, at 63, can you start that slow and like a cello rondo, that tempo? Yeah, so I think just, like you go right to the odd tempo, but I think it almost pulls from that adagio and you could really push that energy even more. Because you built up the line nicely, you have the fortissimo, so I think just sort of following dynamically and tempo-wise to reach back to the odd tempo, maybe that section. So something to think about, maybe even for the next composition. I realize at this point the pieces are done, so a lot of this is advice for the future. Sam, any comments?
The thing I would say is, because I think the piece shows a lot of sophistication in terms of understanding form and the harmonic structure, but as you continue to write piano music, make sure you look closely at like the rhythms that Mozart and Beethoven, the people you mentioned, because I think the one weakness is that it's a little bit rhythmically square, and so just some ideas for like if you're, especially when the second theme kind of repeats a little bit here, you could either expand the motion, or even the first time if you just add like or even a lot of extra kind of rhythmic interest that when you have a little bit too much the constant motion, it gets a little bit too predictable, like listening wise, But so I think it was really nice, like what you did with the harmonies, with the structure, but you're just stay attuned when you're listening, when you're studying, the greats, to see especially what they do with their accompaniment rhythms. You can really learn a lot from
All right. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next up we have Alexander Wolf, who will be playing his sonata in E minor.
lot of really nice different textures within this piece. I think you bring back the material a lot, you use it well, you bring it back at the right times. You create these nice different, the sense of affect, right? You have these different feelings throughout the piece, and I think it's really impressive the way you do that. Also just the dynamic contrast, right? Within like your playing and what you actually wrote out, I think is really great. And it brings, I think it adds to that affect and switching between different feelings. So really nice work. A few things I want you to try out just to experiment with. So I think I like when you get to like this section where you have this, B major arpeggio, and the B minor, and you go back and forth. I think you could experiment with maybe changing what note you start the arpeggio on, essentially. Where every time you do it, right, you start on a B, you end on a B. So I think it would be interesting maybe if you started on like a D sharp, ended on a D sharp, started on an E. Do you feel comfortable like experimenting with a little bit of that?
Sure.
So maybe play like 7 and 8 as is, and then maybe 9 and 10, try something like that just to see. You can land on the chord up there. So especially maybe in the repeat, right? So I think the repeat is the best time to experiment with these kind of things, where the listener has the idea already in their ear, so you can change subtle things like that, I think, just to shape the line a bit more. So whenever you come back to that arpeggio line, I was just thinking how you could sort of start it on a different note, possibly change it. Something else I would maybe think about, you use the octaves a lot in your left hand, and I think it sounds good, but I think you could experiment even at 21, maybe when 20, 21, like in this section, where you're always on the octave. I think it could be interesting to maybe experiment even with fifths, even a third. Do you want to try maybe like measure 20, and then instead of playing the octaves, you could play like the fifth, play the third, just to see what it might sound like? Exactly, yeah. So I think just going between, octaves, thirds, fifths, maybe mixing up those harmonic intervals just to give it a little different sound. Nice. I like the quintuplets. I think that's a really nice section. I think you're playing it well. Something else maybe in this section, maybe 36. So I like this descending line, the forte, and then the piano. But I was thinking, can you maybe like play this like even like louder, and then in this section, maybe like subito, or I mean like crescendo through here, and then subito piano. Yeah, something like that could be cool, just to sort of experiment with those dynamics a little bit. And maybe here, because you always come back to this D and the octaves in the same register, maybe start bringing it down. Whether you could change the note maybe, or just bring it down an octave. Do you want to try maybe from like 39 and just experiment with a different note there on D? It could be anything else in the chord. Yeah, so I think just, moving it around, you keep coming back to it, and it sounds good, but I think, once again, maybe in the repeat would be a good time to sort of experiment with that a little bit. Another idea. Oh, I really like this section at 72, 73, 74. I thought this was really nice. And the only thing I wanted was more of it, honestly, because you go to that key, and it's very, it's a drastic change for a brief moment, and then you sort of move off it, but can you just play this as is, and I guarantee everyone will remember exactly which part this is. Just play that. Yeah, really nice. So I think maybe can you play it as is and then repeat it, but try it like piano, but then crescendo through it the second time? So play it forte and then repeat it at piano, but crescendo through the line. I just love that section. Do you guys remember that section? Really beautiful, right? So I think overall, really wonderful piece. Once again, great playing and great job sort of doing what I'm telling you to do on the spot. Very impressive. Congratulations.
Are we good going on? No break? Onward. Okay.
Continue on? Okay. Is my student next? Okay. All right, so next up we have Claire Rosser. We have Evergreen Forest, and we're going to have Henry Stobbs play cello, and Sam will be playing piano. All right, okay, cool. Claire has been my longest student at Levine. She's been studying with me for 7 years, maybe at this point. It's been a while, so it's been really exciting to work with Claire. Claire likes to work on specific projects, so she'll focus on, you know, sort of a concept, and then she'll write an album, and then she'll record the album and put it out, actually. So this cello and piano, this is part of the her album that she's working on right now. I think you've composed how many of these duets? 15. So she's composed 15 cello and piano duets. This is one of them that's going to be on the album. Yeah, it's been great to work with Claire, and hope you all enjoy the piece. Again, great job. Great job improvising on the spot. What I was telling you to do.
Give me 1 minute to set up, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna stand. So
That would be great.
you have these memorized. Stand is not good.
a beautiful piece. What I really like is the balance between when the piano has a melody and when the cello has a melody. It's really very well balanced in that way. I just also want to read her description of the feeling, which is feeling of majesty, awe, and simplicity. So, and I think that's the important thing is that the piece doesn't really overwhelm us with material, which is good. I think the simplicity here is really a plus. I think the one thing maybe you can experiment with, for the next piece, is maybe a little bit more counter melody in the cello. So there's always the melody going on, but I kind of think that sometimes you can put a little bit more of a sense of counter melody, even if it's quite simple. Let's see if I can find a place where we can work with that. We can just demonstrate that. Can we start from D? Okay, we can play a few bars of D, D until 44. So something really, really simple that you can do is just add something like an F right here. I know,
You mean a
something
B?
like that. This is a B. This is a
Oh, wait.
da, 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 something like that. So instead of
Anticipatory
a little bit,
notes?
yeah, maybe anticipatory notes sometimes in the cello, just an extra note here and there. I think would be really helpful because it is a melodic instrument. It gives you a little bit more sense of motion, even in those parts that are very static. And it's kind of what I don't want to do is maybe say let's add more chords here or something like that. I think the
Can we try that
melody
again,
can
actually?
really add a lot.
Sure.
You could add again with a sense of stillness in the piano, just things like we'll play again, same spot.
D?
Yeah. Colors for the piano. Even very simple and keeping the general gestalt.
Yeah, that could work in that section, not necessarily in a place like the end. We want to calm things down. Like when we were just think about you're starting from a very still place. Maybe you can add a little bit of motion, I don't know, like the sun coming in through the leaves. The breeze, right? Something like that.
Get some reason.
Yeah.
I kept thinking redwood forest, and I think they are evergreen, right? But I didn't want to say redwood forest because it gets you onto a red. Can I just say that this whole project was influenced by Rothko? Do you know the whole excitement about the Rothko paintings and everything? And I thought, and I read something that said, you don't look at a Rothko, you enter into it. So I was writing this music hoping that when somebody listens to it, they're kind of, entering into it rather than just, I don't know, it's hard to explain.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking a little bit of Arvo Pärt, if anybody knows this composer. It does write a lot of
Your
music
favorite.
which is
He's my hero.
Yeah. So, he's a composer who kind of writes music which is not about, creating something very complex, but just something very simple that just depicts a mood or put you in a state of meditation.
Yeah,
I think what
there
Claire
you go.
wants to do, put you in a state of meditation. But there's one more spot. As I said, these are very kind of small comments, and the last thing I want to do is just for you to overexpand the piece. I love you on what it is. Can we have a look at this bar 659? You see there, maybe you can add some like quarter notes going down over here. Yeah, you have
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
60. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that, I think would add a lot. And there's also a few spots where I think that you have a few spots with middle notes. Where is this? Oh, bar 18. I think try and maybe add some motion also through the middle voices. They're they're subtle, but they can be very effective. So for instance,
That's fine. I can add.
59.
No, 18.
18,
Oh,
yeah.
18, sorry.
I'll start at 17.
Sure.
Yeah, something with the middle voices so it doesn't overwhelm, but it adds a little bit of more kind of sense of.
Yeah. I think Jordan, you often say that to me, don't you, when we're going over the original thing? And I try, and I do a little more than I would have done the first time, so
Yeah,
it's good advice.
You're welcome. So again, that's my 2 cents about the middle voices. I think definitely can help in a very subtle way. I think that's what I have to say. It is a beautiful piece and really. The
So next on the program we have David Rada's Atma for cello and piano. David's been studying with me the past year, and David likes to he writes a lot of pieces, and often he presents them as gifts to friends and family members. And I think that's a wonderful idea to take advantage of this art form that we're all studying. So yeah, this is Atma. You can read more about the program notes, the specifics of it. But yeah, so David's been writing a lot, and he's always intrigued by new ideas. He's always trying out new things. And yeah, always willing to pretty much try whatever I send his way. So it's been wonderful to work with Dave, and I hope you guys enjoyed this work.
Just looking at the tempo changes.
Yeah.
My sister plays the cello, and she'll be so envious to hear it. Thank you, Sam. Nicely done.
Thank you.
All right, so it's me again. Hi. So David, it's a wonderful piece. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? I feel like there is a structure behind the piece.
The sweet center is intentionally to be, a B piece, a change. So there's, it comes out of the depths. It's anguished in the beginning, but it matures into this, beautiful opening. But life doesn't stay there that long, and challenges come along. But having that sweet core really helps to carry it along.
Okay. Well, okay, that's wonderful, and it helps me understand your feeling for maybe the performance should feel. Maybe that's something that you can also put in the beginning, in the very beginning of the piece, to give kind of like the performer an idea of how to play. One thing is you have a very nice use of dynamics here as well. You've been using dynamics to give your performance instructions, which is really important. That's why we also got this wonderful performance, I think. It really helps to have these kind of instructions.
Although I'm guilty from what Jordan was suggesting of salting it at the end with the dynamics. Building it with the dynamics along the way does help.
So I think one of my main points for you to think about as you are maybe getting ready to perform this again is maybe adding a little bit more fullness to the chords of the piano. It's like when I was listening from the other, I felt that the cello, when you hear the live cello, it carries a lot of power, and it needs a little bit more support from the piano. I think.
Especially, can we play H again?
Yeah, I was gonna go to the very beginning before that.
Oh, okay, yeah, we can do that.
So like if you can just double those
Yeah, sure,
chords,
yeah.
like an octave above, I think it gives it a lot.
Yeah, you might want more open voicings. Well, let's just play. I'll show you.
Beginning?
Yeah, sure.
You hear how it kind of fills up the gap between the piano and yeah, you can with the piano you can go all the way up to where he's playing. He's playing that upper E, for instance, so you kind of fill the whole gap with big chords. They have 10 fingers, like as much as you can, especially with this style. Yeah.
And you want, in general, especially when accompanying, you want a little more spacing in the bass, and then you could thicken the harmony higher up. So that's why I play it.
Like something like this. So like a fifth underneath here, or even like an octave. So like an octaves here, and then the D. Okay. If you look at Chopin, look at his left hand. He really does it very well. Like he starts with an octave, then up a fifth. And these kind of open spaces in the bass really work.
As I didn't want to take away from the cello opening by having competition from the piano, but I can hear what you're saying is that the cello will come through.
It will come through no matter what.
And you get piano, you can play as loud and as quiet, even if you play like I'm playing eight, right? Yeah, 8 notes, but I can still play super quiet, right? If he's playing mezzo piano, it'll be very clear, even if I'm playing even more, you can still keep it super quiet. So it's not a matter of competition in that sense, essentially.
Yeah, and sometimes one more thing, if you want a piano to come out, it's bar 23. Sam, can you play that theme in octaves?
Yeah. Let's go right there.
But yeah, bar 23, just maybe until up to D.
Together or just?
Together.
Okay, 23.
Listen to it in octaves. You see how piano finger sometimes is not enough when you have the melody in a string instrument. Because string instruments, they carry a lot more sound. And
Nice.
continuous playing, right? They're continually playing while the piano has the attack. Okay. When you keep going throughout the piece, I feel it becomes a little bit more like a sense of variations on this theme. And one thing I would like to maybe suggest is sometimes try to avoid adding the very final chord and the tonic. So just before F, can you actually omit this chord? Don't play it.
Yeah.
So maybe we can start from like bar 39. 39 up to F, and just omit the last chord.
Oh, I don't play the last one. My bad, sorry.
And then just leave the A flat, A sharp. Just leave the A sharp.
Hold the A sharp?
Hold the A sharp and then play the down. Just a flat measure.
Last measure.
Okay.
Just leave the A sharp and then play downbeat. Save that for later. Okay?
Jordan has said almost exactly the same thing. My fault for not doing that.
Okay.
Save those 5 ones.
Yeah, and I see a few more places, such as in age. I think you were talking about age as well, where we can use more of the piano part, just the same thing we talked about at the beginning. Double the melody, add more chords, and that can really help. It actually gives, it helps it carry more. It helps the cello carry more when you add more music. Okay? Another place you can try to avoid one is here. Okay? And those are my comments.
Great. Thank you very much.
Next we have A Wistful Spring by Steve Messner. Violin, right, okay. So Steve has been studying with me this past year. As you might have read in the program notes, he has a pretty crazy work schedule, so he did have the melody quite a while ago, so it's been exciting to see him sort of develop it over the last few months. And yeah, so Steve has been taking lessons here for how long? 20 years, right? Yeah, so
You
Steve,
think I know by now.
so Steve's been taking lessons here for a while. Recently switched to me since Sis retired, and it's been really exciting to work with Steve. It's been awesome to see his piece come together. Steve likes to write piano reductions and then orchestrate out, so just a process that some composers like to use. So I hope everybody enjoys A Wistful Spring.
It says legato unless. Oh.
Yeah, so you play legato and
It was a trap. I fell into that.
Unless it's
It's a trap.
the most difficult things to write.
Yeah, true.
Piano trio. Because I'm a string player, so I think strings and piano trio, yeah. So I think it's difficult because for one, you don't have just one, but you have two melodic instruments, and then you have a piano. Okay, so there's a lot of they kind of clash in a way, right? Piano has chords, it's also kind of loud, and then you have these two instruments that are both very strong and melodic in a way, but they have to kind of work together. So I think one thing that really works in a lot of the piano trio is even doubling the melody and the violin and the cello, so it's louder and you can hear it over whatever the piano is doing. I think that's something that you can start doing is like just doubling in places, so it comes out more as it's thicker.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When you write, do you listen back on your computer? Don't. I would say.
Well, I can't hear it in my head, so I'm sort of stuck.
But can you plunk it out on the keys?
I'm not good enough.
Try it. The problem is, you may have noticed we got lost a few times. The way you've written it, it might sound great on the computer, but it's hard to follow, very hard to follow. And so the computer, listening on the computer becomes a handicap.
I understand.
Yeah.
For instance, in C, right? In C, for instance, you have these kind of chords that are a little hard to play on the piano. I mean, that's not the part you were talking about, I think.
That is not. It's so.
It's not. Yeah, we're talking
I
about
mean,
D.
yeah, I'm talking about. You're starting at D. Things get difficult because of the rhythm, and because the computer, like the rhythm is no problem. It's a machine. But you want to feel and hear kind of a natural pulse to the rhythm, and kind of you have to do your best. Even if you can't hear the pitches, you can feel and hear the rhythm in your head without resorting to the computer, because it's a very unnatural rhythm to read and to and then to play, to stay together was very difficult.
I think one thing that can also help is a different sort of notation, because
yeah.
you're writing the 16ths as 16 rests, and when you have a lot of these rests, it's a little hard to follow. One thing you can do is just write them as an 8th note with staccato, yeah, and then it's kind of easier to differentiate them from where you have them on the offbeat. Then you have the offbeat here; it's clear. It's easier for the player to follow. Because actually, I kind of do want you to experiment with rhythm. So it's also, there's an art of writing these things to make it easier for performance. Yeah. So whenever you can avoid writing 16-note rest, it's preferable. I actually like the counter rhythm that you had for the cello, whereas it came in, I think. Oh, here we go. In bar 36, actually with the piano. You can, if I kind of think that this could have come in earlier. Can we play bar 36, 37? I think that's one of the rhythms that you were talking about.
Like 1
So,
and a 2
this could be
3
written
and a 4 again.
36
Yeah,
directly.
36, yeah. 3 and 4 again.
I really like that counter rhythm.
It's much better slow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that maybe in a second or third reading that could have worked a little
What
bit
would
better.
also help a lot is, especially for sight reading, if everybody had a score so that we can see each other's parts, that would probably be.
I mean,
Yeah.
there is a score submitted. I think it's just whatever you want.
Yeah, I tried to print it out and it was like the format was all
Don't.
weird. Like it was only, I got half a page.
Yeah,
so
don't do that, because it's your job to supply the part. I think it's really important to have parts that are easy to read. There is a book called Behind Bars, which is a funny name, but it's a book about notation. And you can look at it. I'm not sure if we have it in the library.
It's in there, but it's in a storage closet.
In a
somewhere.
storage closet.
So behind bars.
Yeah, something like behind bars. Yeah. And that can help you with figuring out how to write these notation things, for instance. Another thing is I think that you can use one of the hands to add accompaniment and also thicken the chords here. For instance, once again, in E, I think we can definitely thicken more of these chords. This is a place where the cello has a melody in the low register, and that's actually could be maybe thickened with the piano. Looking at E, can you play this an octave lower with the cello? So it's also the cello is also a little bit like an orchestra in a way, right? Because you can do stuff like double and thicken. These are things that are meant to help a melody come out and be heard more. So let's try that. In E, the piano will play the cello part in octave lower. You have a lot of nice melodies, but they don't. We can't hear them so well because they need to be thickened. So that's something that you can definitely.
I have one suggestion, if you wouldn't mind. Can I?
Yeah.
A little input. So right here in Pitts, in violin part, right? You can see. So you have written 16th notes, right? But in pizzicato, it's gonna sound like 16th notes, even if you just write 8 notes. So therefore, I don't have a heart attack when I see it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So if it's 8 notes, it's gonna sound exactly the same because there's gonna be a rest because I'm not sustaining when I do pizzicato, right? So it's gonna sound exactly the same, but violinists will not have a stroke.
Can we play 47? One last thing. Can we play 47 to F so we can just hear that again? I think that's the part where we're not hearing.
47. Okay.
This basically for you the first the first 4 are like 8 notes. This is 8 notes, and these are offbeats. So 8 notes and then offbeats. 8 notes, offbeat, 8
We'll
notes.
also have heart attack here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
3, 4. The pizzicato double in the piano, but you see that they couldn't you make it even the second time. So I will just take that and rewrite it for the
this is way too and like looks just like ants.
Good. Thank you. Nice work.
Grabbing his violin, I'll introduce his next student, Bill Cummins, and he's hearing variations on, how do you pronounce that?
I'm not sure, but I think it's Agnish.
Agnish.
You want a chair?
Sure. I think I'm playing first. This is the part I have.
Okay.
Do you have first or second?
Okay. So far.
Can we get another music stand? Could you get us a music
We
stand?
have a
Take a stand.
I think I can also get the part.
second. We
Yeah,
have
I
the
can
second
find the
one.
part too. I can just get the.
Here, this is yours.
Oh, I'm playing first or second?
Go for it. Good. Why don't you do? You want to do first or
I
second?
don't care. But could you leave the
Flip
stand?
a coin.
Oh,
I'll do first because I practice it.
You did?
Usually a good read.
So now if you make a
I know the
mistake,
piece-
we'll know it's a choice,
I
right?
know this. How did we do these? We managed to get through the whole thing together? Or is this anything we should,
Well, is the composer here?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But
Oh,
was
sorry.
this
Oh,
together?
great.
Oh, yeah, it was good.
We finished together. We started together. We finished
Yeah.
together. It was together.
Yeah, so really wonderful piece. What's your primary instrument? I'm just voice. Okay, nice. Yeah, I thought it was really nice. I like the harmonic world you sit in, sort of this D Dorian, at least, you know.
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah, mostly it's really nice. I think you've got these double stops, which you work in. I like that.
help me with that.
I figured, yeah. I like the harmonic use of, melodic instrument. It's always nice, and I think just texturally, right? You have a lot of things going on, and I think it works well, and a lot of great things. So a couple things I would experiment with. So just the very opening. So who has the melody in the very opening?
Well, violin one.
Exactly. So you don't do a lot with dynamics in general, right? Your score
I
is
didn't
pretty.
do any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's like crescendo. I saw a crescendo
Oh, yeah.
down. There's one crescendo in the cello.
Crescendo, the whole piece.
Yeah. So back to that. I don't want to emphasize the dynamic thing too much, but something like that, where the beginning very clearly, like violin one has the melody, but based on what the score says, like everyone was sort of playing at the same level.
Yeah.
Right. So I think
Yeah.
just balancing out sections would be the main thing I would work on, and it will really add a lot of nuance, I think, to the piece. So. So just working the dynamics, one of my earliest composition professors always said that everything should be motivic, including the dynamics. So like if I showed him anything on the page, he would ask me where I got it from or how I got to that point. I couldn't explain it. He would have me either delete it or work it in somewhere. So he was big into the everything should be motivic, including dynamics. So even setting up some dynamic motivic ideas, I think, could be helpful. And like think of it that way, rather than the salt at the end of the seasoning. I think work that into the beginning, right? Make it part of the main dish.
Abner said if you don't put dynamics, the performers just have to guess.
Yeah, well, yeah,
And I
exactly.
kind of, I kind of felt like the players will know better than me, but I think
Yeah.
I probably should.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure Abner definitely knew the melody. Violin 1 had the melody in the opening, but just looking at the parts, like Violin 2 is some counter melody. I think cello is clearly, I would say the background. So I would just think of these in layers, right? You have 3 instruments, so it's not like they always have to be separate layers. But I think for the opening, it's clearly like Violin 1 is melody, Violin 2 is sort of the middle ground with some counter melody, and then the cello is clearly like more of the accompaniment. So can you guys maybe play the first 9 measures, but just like Violin 1 come out more, Violin 2 think about middle ground, and yeah, if you want to, Henry, if you want to play pretty softly and just more like accompanimental, I think that would be nice just to hear these layers might work. Softer really gives it a place to go.
Yeah, I think it's easier for me to play.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because so you're not competing
balance
with anybody.
much better.
Yeah. So I think especially just starting soft. Like when I was looking at it, I kind of assumed it would have this really gentle sort of feel, and this violin would emerge. So I think just starting it a little more, gentle, indicating those dynamics could be helpful. Something else. You studied with Abner, so I imagine you've gone over like slurs and things, and the strings are not quite there.
Yeah, I was worried about putting that because I read that it's about it pertains to bowing. You try to
right.
And I didn't want to tell these folks how to bow.
Right. Okay. So they played it exactly how you wrote. Did you throw in any slurs, Abner, or did you?
I did throw them in, yeah.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah. So
yeah. I think a dotted slur tells you that it's like a and a regular slur says that that's how you're bowing.
Slur's the bow, right? Yeah. So like literally, you change the bow when the slur changes, right?
Right.
So the slur is going to make it more legato, where when you don't have any slurs, it's going to be all detached and more articulated. So I think, can you guys play the same thing, maybe the opening, but can you throw in even more slurs and make it more legato, just so you can hear like the difference? Exactly, yeah. It sounds nice. So I think, just, some of those little details make a big difference, right? And I think you have a lot of counterpoint going throughout the piece. So I think, adding dynamics, maybe adding some slurs, then you can get some more variation between some of those sections. Something else I was thinking about, I noticed this, you go up to this high D here, but then you go to it at a measure 12, and then you come back to it in measure 15 in the violin 1.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, like, if you drop this one down an octave at measure 12, then when you get to 15, I think this one will seem like more of an arrival.
Yeah.
Yeah, so can you guys maybe play from 12, 11, 10, 9? I guess the pickup going into 10. And can you take that first high D down an octave and then save it for measure 15?
Sure.
Okay.
This is
The
not
one.
LQ.
Which
8, 9. So play the pickup going into 10, and then on measure 12, take this D down an octave, so that way this one sings more. Go ahead. 1. Thank you.
Yeah. See what you mean?
Yeah,
See what
yeah,
mean.
that D really sings,
definitely,
especially because that one's it's held a little bit longer. So I think just saving that higher note for a slightly later point. Something else I thought of. Where is it? So I was thinking, can you guys go to 58, 59, measure 60? So in measure 60, I was thinking you do have a lot of this counterpoint, right? Things are moving around a lot. And I like when you have like some of these longer, more sustained notes. And even at measure 60, like maybe taking out some of the cello activity, so it's sort of, you could have these more lush, like sustained
Yeah, that's what
textures.
when I listen to it, it's like it's so busy. It's
Yeah.
too busy.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not too busy. No, it's great. It sounds great as is, but these are just things to think about moving forward where you might want to change it around. So, Henry, can you maybe at measure 60 and 61, instead of playing those 8th notes, can you just play a half note on an E and then play a half note on a D? So you're just playing half note, quarter, and just play those couple measures. But
Is this a fugue? And with the this is a fugue. With
Well,
the
kind of
inversion,
fuguey.
right? So if you have this theme, this is the inversion.
Yeah.
Please bring it out. And everybody else play less.
in general, yeah. Yeah. So that's another, dynamics would be helpful there. But yeah, I just think because you have things moving, I think taking out some of the rhythmic activity, just some more sustained could be nice. So can you guys try that just at measure 60 and just basically I want you to just change to half note, quarter, Henry.
Can we start from 59?
Sure.
Just second beat.
Oh yeah,
Second beat
yeah,
of,
go into it.
Second
Yeah.
beat of 59. 1. So it's like this. 1, 2.
Oh, okay. Give it my best shot.
Let's just start from the upbeat, the downbeat 59. 59 downbeat. 1, 2,
So, something like that. I'm just trying to find spots where you could maybe just smooth it out a little bit and just break up some of that activity. So when you come back to it, it'll be that much more effective.
Yes.
I'll also get notes on.
Yeah, it's a little tricky.
And then the last thing I was thinking, actually, you have at 67, 68, this is all pretty active. And I was thinking if you actually cut the cello, it could be nice to take out that, low register and then bring it in maybe here. So you just have this, the violin ideas. So,
Yeah.
So Henry, can you guys play from measure 67, but Henry, can you not play until that quarter note in 69 on beat 3?
I see how it is.
That D. If you,
You're starting at 67?
yes, I want you to.
Okay.
I want you to not play and just have the violins, and then you come in on 69 on that
Okay.
quarter note. Yes, do your best. Self-control. Right?
2,
3. I think just experimenting with that,
Yes.
cutting out the low registers, just
Yeah.
have violins, bring in the cello. You can sort of cut out instruments and sort of maximize your orchestration here, right? But yeah, so these are just things to think about maybe in the future. But I think just especially in the beginning, just messing with dynamics, slurs, I think that'll really shape the whole piece. And, yeah, but congrats. I think it sounds wonderful. Thank you.
And let's please thank our faculty string players.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the program is a impromptu. That's what it is now, right?
Yeah.
In B flat minor. I think I got the key right this time. By my student David Dwan.
Oh, thank you. I have a question. So I just from playing it, I gathered kind of the variation kind of aspect of the something like that, yeah. So I think you can think, so for the variations, what am I trying to say? Sorry, let me gather my thoughts for a second. What would you say is like the main melodic theme? I guess is the first question, the main question I have.
Yeah, I think that was one of the questions I was going to ask, which is
Okay.
this piece really came about from maybe 5 or 6 different independent melodies.
Got it.
So I would say the one element, almost like a rondo kind of idea that kind of binds it together, is that opening scale that runs up and then comes down. So that sort of unifies it, but then there's that lyrical melody that repeats a couple times. There's the da 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 da, the moderato melody. So one of the questions I wanted to ask is it coherent? Like, would you recommend I, excise some of the material and focus on developing and being more economical with melodies?
So I think for me the kind of the most compelling melody is definitely this one. That's your best theme, I think. And so my recommendation would probably be to go with that more.
Yeah.
And then because that comes back, but it's the same accompaniment,
Yeah,
more or
it's
less,
literally the
right?
same, yeah.
Yeah. So it is the same. So you can probably do a lot more. Just so you can play around much more with how you set that melody, and you can dramatic at the end or something. So lots of different possibilities for that one. And just a quick thing about the opening. So this whole first page sounded like kind of a grand introduction.
Yes.
So what I would say about that is, I think you kind of arrived at the goal point like 3 separate times, and you probably only want to do that once. So that is here, here, and then finally here. So what I'm talking about. So he had this florid intro, which was. But then so what he's kind of aiming for is to get this like long half cadence, ends up here, and then the piece proper kind of starts. But too many times he aimed at this harmony and then moved away, and then again, and then finally the last arrival. So I feel like if you can find a way to build the tension to that a little bit more.
So maybe avoid the F major.
I think so. And if you're going from if you have something that's going to lead to that, you want to kind of explore those like dominant preparation kind of things a little bit more, and see if you can build a little more tension into that final grand half cadence that then leads to the piece.
Yeah. I think overall I kind of abused the 5. Like,
Yeah. A little bit. So you want to, but so obviously I think, and as you keep going, and if I remember, you were the piano trio for the.
Yeah.
Well, most people were piano. But I think there was a little more like harmonic, like sparkle in that than I hear in this. So I think you can go back to that, but then kind of just as you keep going, kind of think about expanding your harmonic.
Okay. More harmonic
Toolkit.
variety.
Yeah. But I like a lot of the piano stuff is very pianistic. This is very nice. Very easy. But not easy in a. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean like I recognize what's happening, and the structure makes it very easy to read that way, and that's good.
Were there any parts that you felt were not as idiomatic for the piano, or like notation-wise, it was like hard to read?
Yeah, so when you get all these rolled chords going here, that's like probably a little thicker than you want. So if you want, because I like the rhythm, but it's obscured by all the chords. So if you have much better that way. Yeah, so you just have the chord on the. And that actually allows the rhythm to come through much more clearly. Yeah. That's the one. Yeah, that's the one spot that really stuck out to me. I think. But yeah. Cool. Great. Awesome. Good job. Okay. Last but not least, is George and Melissa. Hello. Come on up. So George has been. By the way, I forgot to introduce my earlier student because I was all in playing mode. But everyone heard Alexander earlier. He's been studying with me just this year, so he's done some great work, obviously, as you heard. And George has been doing composition with me for what, 3, 4?
Yeah, it's gotta be 4 years now.
Yeah, 4 years because we started before, you know, that thing we all talk about. Go ahead. So yeah, 4 or 5 years. And George wrote a whole, right, how many songs in this?
18.
He upstaged Claire with the 18 songs. So this is one of them.
side, right? Nice. So it's good, demonstrating everything, right? So I thought your use of time was great. I love how you switch between the time signatures, and even when you sit in a time, I felt like you do a good job of sort of moving around with the rests and sort of deceiving the listener. But I really love that 7/8, 8/8 feel in the beginning is nice. I think you support the voice really well in your writing. You're always, above it, below it. You're never right on top of it, and I thought you do a good job of that throughout. Yeah, so a lot of really nice things. A few things just to maybe think about. So I noticed a lot of times whenever you have the voice enter, you're almost always like right on that downbeat. So I think you could experiment with maybe bringing the voice on a weak beat, right? So the voice always comes in on a downbeat, and I think it works. But I think every once in a while to bring it in on a weak beat. You have a couple times where you like in here, you have there's like a couple phrases where you'll do it, but for the most part, you're always right on the beat. So I thought it would be interesting to maybe experiment with just coming in on an offbeat. So can you maybe play like maybe going into measure 8, and can you actually, it's going to be hard with the text setting, but can you actually come in on that F instead of the E on measure 8?
Sure, can.
Where are you starting from?
And you can just sort of move the text over.
Yeah, I got you.
So, yeah, I guess.
So, yeah, I guess pick up to 8, yeah.
I think we might need a little more.
Sure.
Why don't I start on the measure before?
Yeah, you can play all of 7 if you want, 6, whatever you want to do.
Let me do that again.
Oh, sorry.
I think it would be.
Could we just start right
Were you
here?
saying? I think you were thinking, fugitiva,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I just need a contextualization. Can we start on measure 6?
Yeah.
Great. Buona brisa, fugitiva, imprecisa.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, just 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So I think just throwing those in every once in a while could be nice. I think you do a good job of setting up the voice well, but I think just taking out some of those downbeats here and there could be nice to have the voice enter, and just on off beats could be nice. So I like one thing. I mean, it's gonna be hard to sort of experiment with, but I like when you get into the 2/2. But I like how before that you're doing 7/8, 8/8, 7/8. You're sort of switching around with the times. And when you get into the 2/2, you sort of sit there. And I was thinking you could experiment with throwing in like a 3/2 or something, just so it's to sort of keep that rhythmic idea up of changing up the meter. Nothing to sort of improvise right now, but I think that would be something to think about. But maybe just throwing a 3/2, maybe a 4/2. Still mainly stick to 2/2, but throwing in an odd meter in there might mix it up a little bit. Something we can maybe experiment with. Can we go to measure 38? So I like how you start working in the staccato figures. Sorry, I know this is hard to jump in. Oh, you can't even see the measure. Okay. Yeah, so 38s, or you could even do the pickup as well. But I like how you work in these staccato figures, sort of approaching this 6/8 section. I was wondering what it would sound like if you work in more staccatos in the 6/8. So even maybe in the voice a little bit on like 39, those last 8 notes on 40. Just make those staccatos. So yeah, can you try maybe 38 and just make those last 2 8th notes of each of those bars staccato? And then when you get to 42, can you make that 8th note in the left hand staccato, like in 42, 43? So it's 1, 3, just to sort of accent it a little bit.
Yeah.
You want to try that?
So for you, it's.
Thank you. No, quietis la mirada por buscar un rincón desde sondejar en la paz mi corazón, mi vida es un desierto, es el desierto.
Yeah, nice, right? So very subtle, but I think just mixing in that, that detail, just sort of. I mean, you do it all over the place. So I was thinking in there, the 6/8's a nice section to throw them in. And yeah, just using them in the voice, because you do them in the voice. A lot of times you have them on the 16th notes, so I think just putting them on some of the 8th notes could be nice.
Yeah.
Jump around. And the last thing I wanted to try, can you look at measure 79? So like I said, you do a good job of, sorry, I know you can't see the measure numbers as well.
Yeah.
So I think you do a really nice job of supporting the voice being underneath it and on top of it. But I think you go to that high piano register, but you only do it a couple times and you sort of come down like here. So I was thinking maybe at like in this section, can you try taking that right hand up an octave for like these 3 measures maybe?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know how comfortable you feel doing this on the spot.
Sorry.
So you can actually, if you want to approach it, it might be nice just to hear the contrast. So if you want to go from like, I don't know, 77,
Yeah.
and just try taking that right hand up in the 8/8.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So you have.
Pasa de largo y no te quedes. No ría de acá, pues siempre pasajera.
Yeah. I'm already switching octaves there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I want to switch.
Right,
I
right.
do like the octave switches there, so I was trying to think if I want to go another octave up there.
Right, I was thinking that, yeah, because you're always up and down.
That actually works, I think.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that actually. Up there is nice. So yeah, I think just sitting in that upper register a little more. You go up there a tiny bit, but you know you come down. So I think to have some of those nice chords you have just in that upper register could be nice, and you're still
Yeah.
above the voice, so
Yeah,
it should
yeah.
work, right? But yeah, overall though, I think it's really nice. The last thing I would say would be maybe to, I mean, you have the accelerando here, but maybe even a little more like push and pull throughout, where you have all the time changes, but maybe even a little more like accelerandos or retards, you know, just sort of stretching it a bit more, a little more elasticity. But overall, you know, really nice piece and great writing, and once again, wonderful performance.
Thank you.
Thank you for sticking with us until the end. Let's just give our composition teachers a round of applause. Jordan, Chase, Sam Post, Patrick, Kenny Stillwell, and our students. Thank you, and we hope to see you back next year for our other composition events.